Okay, I don't like to make unsupported claims. I made a claim that they discovered some giant creature in 81 BC. This is a long time ago. That's over 2,000 years ago. They didn't believe there was giants back then. So when they invaded, the Romans invaded Tangiers in Morocco, the locals showed them a huge mound, and it was supposed to be the grave of Antiochus, was the city's famous founder. Now the grave was gigantic, so the Romans said, "You're crazy, you people are nuts." And they said, "Yeah, oh no, it's real." They went and they dug it up, and they found his remains. And they were approximately 85 feet long was his body. And then after they dug it up, they reburied him with great honors because they realized it was all true. Now, he goes back to the time of Hercules. Hercules, same guy. What this guy would do, this Antiochus, he was a wrestler. Everybody that came through his territory, he killed them in a wrestling contest. I mean, this is crazy stuff, but that's what it says. Now and this was written down in the Greek mythology. This is the labors of Hercules. So now Hercules is coming through Antiochus's territory, and he runs into Antiochus, and Antiochus wants to kill him. And Hera wanted to kill Hercules too, because she had a grievance with him. Okay, here's where this gets interesting. Zeus was supposedly the top god that the real god put in charge of the earth and the rest, and he turned into a rapist, and he'd seduced all the women. He was just wild with sex. And that's what they say. They wanted to come down and have sex. Zeus was in charge of the 200 guys they threw down to earth eventually. But Hera was really upset because Zeus, infidelity, he was in with every woman that he could find. He was a sexual fanatic. She hated Hercules because he was the product of an affair that Zeus had with somebody else. I mean, he was with all of them. And there's some hilarious stories about this. I'll have to tell you the one about Perseus. Anyway, Hera attempted to destroy Hercules. She wanted to kill him. Did everything she could do to try to kill him. When he was an infant, she sent serpents in, put him in his cradle to try to kill him. Hercules but he didn't. He strangled him. All right, I'm just going to go down this road quickly because this is really interesting. Hercules was born of a demigod to Greek god Zeus, a mortal woman, Alchemy. So Zeus had sex with a mortal woman called Alcmene. Now, because of his immortal father, he was a demigod. He was like half and half. He possessed superhuman strength, but he was basically human. Hercules would be known as one of the greatest heroes in Greek mythology, as his story includes perseverance, tragedy, betrayal, all that stuff. Now, to know how Hercules died, we have to know how he lived. Hercules' life was not easy, which would come to foreshadow his untimely death. Hercules was hated by Hera. Hera, the Greek goddess of the marriage, was married to Zeus. She was the Greek goddess of marriage. She was supposed to say, this is how marriage is supposed to work. Well, Zeus, he wasn't down with that. He was down with any woman he can get down with. And she was married to Zeus when he had extramarital affair with a mortal woman. That's just one of zillions. All right, so that's just, as far as I could determine, Zeus must have been Satan. He was put in charge as the master god over all of Earth realm. And he came down and was having sex with everything he could have sex with. And that's basically what they wrote in the Bible. Okay, I'm not going to go through this whole scenario here. I've done it a million times. But this is Apollodorus 1.6.3. When the gods had overcome the giants, Earth was more enraged and had intercourse with Tartarus and brought forth Typhon. And they talk about him being a hybrid, and I will show you that hybrid right here. All right, this is Typhon in the desert in Morocco. His head starts here and it goes all the way across North Africa. In the ancient text, it said he was so huge that his head often brushed the stars. And he had coils of a viper and all of these things. And he is a dragon. And if you have Google Earth, you can certainly go up and see it. And here he is right here. That's the outline of his head. You come back and look at it over and over until you figure it out. There's his throat. And there's his dragon-scaled exterior of his throat. This is a collapsed interior of his throat. And here he is, without being outlined, is here. You see him? Runs all the way down. That's his neck, all the way down to here. This is his body. These are his legs. This is his tail. Runs all the way out to the other side of North Africa. This is an enormous creature attacking a giant fish. Now you have Google Earth. Come up and do a little research yourself. Here he is very close up. This is his dragon-scaled throat. You see the dragon scales? There's his throat running all the way down. And it was cut right here by Zeus with his great and mighty sword. Again, you have Google Earth. I'm not going to belabor this. One of Hercules' labors. I won't belabor it. Now, what did they not know when they made this? Was Zeus attacking Typhon? This is exactly what they say his Typhon was. It was a hybrid. They didn't know he had a dragon head. They put a human head on him because they called him a hybrid. The only thing that they ever said in Apollodorus 1.6.3 is his thighs, right here, his thighs were of the same as human. The rest of them was dragon. And they say it's all unkempt, red flaring eye, all of that stuff. It's identical. So as far as I'm concerned, that's Typhon. And he's over 1,100 miles long, much longer than that. And when he stood up, he'd be at least twice as high as the space station. So let's go with brushing the stars. Now this is my consideration. If all of the things I'm showing in my mud fossils, and I have mud fossil giant humans that were DNA tested, parts of them were CAT scanned, one of them that I have has a fingertip, just a fingertip is 3 feet long. So that creature was extremely large. The one in Morocco, the giant in Morocco, was only 85 feet tall. That's a puppy. This guy would be at least 160 feet tall. He'd be twice as tall as that guy. This is right on my property. Well, actually, I sold that piece of property, but it's right. It's like this far off my property. But I have all the evidence, and I have the DNA reports, and all that stuff. So as far as I'm concerned, until they start taking this into consideration, everything they're talking about is starting from an insecure foundation. They don't understand what actually exists to support the evidence that was recorded in history, especially about battles in the heavens. I just did one about this the other day. There are all body parts out there. Comet 67P is a body part of a creature that's so gigantic it would fall into the realm of this. It would be something that could come down and kill this guy. They're just enormous creatures. That's all I can say. And Enoch talked about it. Everybody thought it was insane. They even wouldn't put that book in the Bible. And I believe the reason they didn't put it in was because it was just too spectacular. It talked about these crazy things, giants being 2.5 miles tall. Who's going to believe that? So they, as far as I'm concerned, that's why they kept it out. Not because it wasn't true. It was just too spectacular. You can't force somebody to look at something like that. You know, even when they say the guy was 80 feet long, oh, no, that's impossible. Now, that was 81 BC. So, nobody believed in the giants even 2,500 years ago. And Herodotus did talk about that. All of them talked about it. They said there was giants, but nobody believes in it anymore. They think we're crazy for saying it. And they do now, too. And here I have the evidence to support everything I say with DNA and CAT scans and specimens, and they still think I'm crazy. Or at this point, I know they just cannot handle the truth. Okay, I don't make statements that I cannot support. This is from Yale. Derek Briggs is the guy that I was talking to. And they talked about exceptional preservation of soft-bodied biota, just means creatures, promoted by silica-rich oceans. Exactly what I told them a year, well, more than that, but a year before that I wrote a book saying this is what happened. And now this is all pretty much mostly people from Yale. They agree that this is exactly what did happen. There was a worldwide flood. And there's one single layer worldwide, and they don't know how these fossils remained. I do, but they don't. Now, they were soft-bodied creatures, exceptional preservation, which you can see they are. That goose still has his feathers. You see that? Those are his feathers in my goose, Caesar Augustus. All right? They all died flat in the flood, just like this. This is why I caused it. It was from a flood, and they know this now. And they're calling it some Carta-style preservation. Well, no, it's not. It's mud fossils. I was the one that discovered it. I was the one that presented it to Yale. Then they wrote their paper, not the other way around. So, here's the deal. There was rapid, where is it? Somewhere down here. Here it is, right here. The preservation was due to rapid, which is a flood, early stage precipitation. So a rapid precipitation of silica cements facilitated by high saturation in the oceans. The oceans cover the entire world. It was a worldwide event. They're everywhere around the world. So this is Yale University. And again, these Derek Briggs is the guy I presented all my evidence to a year prior to this, and they refused to discuss it with me because they were so shocked that I had giants. And I mean, I got giants. Now, the other thing is, I just ran into somebody that knows that Derek Briggs is working with people trying to understand this fossilization of my soft-body creatures. Only they think they're just little bacteria and stuff or something. I don't know what they're thinking. But I have all of this stuff. And we have, like I said, new species. And when I talk about new species, we got more than one. And to have a university like Yale not be interested is, it's basically disgraceful. I mean, what else can you say? That's their job. And to push me out the door and say, don't come back here again, that's a disgrace. Okay, and this is another situation of academia being so full of themselves that they can't give credit to anybody else, and they actually sort of slip this under the rug as far as I'm concerned, because I never even knew that they wrote this paper until just actually a few months ago. They just dismissed me and really demeaned me in some very nasty ways. Okay, so we know now that Yale agrees with exactly what I said. There was a worldwide flood. It preserved all my mud fossils in exceptional soft-body preservation. Now, what does that mean? Well, to them, it means almost nothing. To them, they just slough it off to the side. And I do know that Derek Briggs understands and is possibly involved. I can't confirm that for a fact, but he does know and referred somebody to a place that is doing the research on these fossils. However, my understanding is they think that nothing like this could possibly have been preserved. It's much too exquisite. And I have the details and the proof and the DNA and CAT scans even that show that that is not correct. So I expect them to engage at some point. And there is certain things called fiduciary responsibilities. They are really fiduciaries to their students, these professors. They are trying to get them a better job in life so they can make more money. They are totally in control of them. The students have no way to push back against what they're being told to say and do. That means that they are fiduciaries. They have the responsibility to act in the best interest of the students, and that is not what's happening. Secondly, there's another thing called academic fraud, which means suppression of unwanted information or taking credit for somebody else's research a year after they published their book. So there's a lot to discuss here. Okay, like I said, I'm going to make some unbelievable statements, but you see what you think. I saw what I think. Now, I'm going to just play you for a second, play for you a second of what he's going to show about this two, what they believe is stars.
This image, you can see this bright spot here. That's actually two stars, much more.
All right, they're showing two stars, one of them white and one of them black.
Massive than the sun, that are in orbit around one another. So what you see here are these two lobes of material.
All right, I'm going to show you what I think. They're saying this all exploded out and it's just been going. Well, let me play it for you because it is interesting. Only a couple of minutes. Here goes.
Material, and they are from a giant eruption that the star had about 200 years ago. And when these massive stars are near the end of their life, they become quite unstable. And there was this tremendous eruption that blew up about 20 times the mass of the sun. And there was a massive brightening of the star, became one of the brightest stars in the sky in the 1840s. And what we see here is the result of that massive eruption and these lobes of material that are slowly making their way out into interstellar space. Mariners at the time used it as a navigation aid. This brightening only lasted a number of years. And then it since faded, but Eta Carinae is still a relatively bright star. The dust in this homunculus nebula, which is what it's called, is going to continue to expand. It's being illuminated by the stars that are interior to it. Here's another image of Eta Carinae taken with Hubble. It looks a little different. Hubble is outfitted with very specialized filters that can see the light emitted from specific atoms at specific wavelengths.
That is critical. If they can do that, we can determine precisely what is going on here.
The blue shows you where the magnesium is emitting light. The red shows regions where nitrogen is emitting light. They have different ionization states. They respond to this ultraviolet light in different ways. One of the things that happens in these massive stars is they're factories for heavier elements, and that's where the
heavy elements means metals and so forth.
Elements in our bodies and the Earth all come from stars like this, supernovae, and massive stars that process them and eject the material back out into space. And
that's their conclusion based on what they're seeing here and how they view the material in the universe. Now, I just want to make a statement right now while you're looking at this. There's no way light can get through all that stuff without slowing down. It saturates the whole universe, and they completely discount it. So they say the speed of light is 186,000 miles a second, and it never slows down. Well, it does slow down. They know it slows down, and it eventually becomes the microwave background, which is the tiniest, really just hardly have any energy at all because they just expended all their energy by banging into things. But as they bang into them, they shift into the red part of the spectrum, which is slower. It's just the nature of banging into something. Now, I just wanted to make that point, so I'm going to go back here for a couple of seconds.
Nitrogen is emitting light. They have different ionization states. They respond to this ultraviolet light in different ways. One of the things that happens in these massive stars is they're factories for heavier elements, and that's where the heavy elements in our bodies and the Earth all come from. Stars like this, supernovae, and massive stars that process them and eject the material back out into space. And that's sort of the hard work that astronomers want to do because we want to understand all the details of what's happening in this nebula. That's what these extraordinary eyes that Hubble has allow us to do. This is a very complex and volatile object, and in fact, one of the reasons for being interested is that on the list of stars that we know about in the Milky Way that may soon become supernovae, this is one of them. It takes about 8,000 years for the light from Eta Carinae to reach us.
All right, now, 8,000 years. Think about this now. They're basing light on 186,000 miles per second. multiply 8,000 years of seconds times 186,000 miles. You know how far that thing is away? Yeah, it's 100 billion miles away. I don't know. You got a lot of math to do there, my friend, if you want to multiply out the number of seconds in 8,000 years. And then multiply each second times the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles. And that's as far, you're just, and that's how they judge how far these things are. And they don't take into account anything that's in between. And there's all tons of stuff. I figure I might as well throw this in too. They're trying to figure out the elusive source of the solar winds, what's creating all this turbulence. There's mountains all over the sun. They're not huge, but they're still pretty good size. And when they scrub like hell. And when they do, they create heat. And way out at the corona, it's millions of degrees, and on the surface, it's only 10,000. We're just going to have a lot of science to go through, my friends. Okay, this is crazy, but it's factually true. All right, we're looking at comet 67P right here. You see that ball on the end? You see this little round bundle here? Little pinchy thing, pinchy thing, pinchy thing, pinchy thing, and a round bundle, and then these straps running up here, and then all of this and all that little debris down here. This was from the European Space Agency. They landed a lander on there. It's called a Philae lander. This was back in 2014. I followed this as closely as they did. They were very, very open with everything they did, all of the chemistry and everything. Now, just look at the architecture of this. Now, let me show you more about this. This was what we're just looking at. Now, this is what they are showing from NASA, talking about two gigantic stars colliding. All right, now, I want you to look at you really have to examine things closely without just accepting what they say. They say there's two stars smashing into each other, causing all this big catastrophe. And, you know, they had a bright light for a little while, and then it got dim, but they can still see now with the new telescopes. They can see all this stuff. These are emanations that are given off because that thing there is cooking in sunlight. These are not stars, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I'll show you my evidence to support what I'm saying, because that is precisely what you see here. You see that big shooter right out of there? This is comet 67P. And this only happens when it's in bright sunlight. Why? Why only in bright sunlight? There's not dust blowing off there. These things are shooting out of here.